Hi, I am Lisa Wickman with the Wickman Real Estate Group here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, known as the Twin Cities. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about why people are actually leaving the Twin Cities. So let's get started. So before we talk about why people are actually leaving the Twin Cities, I want to talk a little bit about the population of the Twin Cities. So in the St. Paul area, there are about 300,000 people. And in the Minneapolis area, and I'm talking the city proper, 425,000 in Minneapolis. Now between the year July 2021, July 2022, about 19,400 people left the state of Minnesota, which is the highest number ever in history. We have always been a community that has brought in a lot of immigrants. Job opportunities are plentiful here. There is quality of life here is very good. However, some things have changed. So those are some reasons why people actually move. But why are they moving out? Let's start with the pandemic, which started in March of 2020. What happened through all of that, with things being shut down, businesses being shut down, people working virtually from home, and that has just continued. And what people found out was that they could actually work from anywhere, really. And so they did. For example, my daughter remodeled a little school bus and hit the road because her and her boyfriend can work virtually from anywhere, so they're traveling around the country. But people found that because the cost of living is very high in the Twin Cities, and we'll come back to that, they found that living in rural Minnesota is much more reasonably priced. They could get housing much cheaper. Everything was a little bit less expensive, so they could still be in Minnesota, but leaving the Twin Cities. But we are talking about why people are leaving the state as well. Let's talk about the cost of living. Again, what I mentioned was people were leaving because of the cost of living here in the Twin Cities. The average rent in Minneapolis and St. Paul, they vary by just a couple dollars, so we're just gonna round it off to $1,335 for a one-bedroom apartment is the average rent in Minneapolis and in St. Paul. Now, what does that mean? It depends on the neighborhood of the property. The neighborhood that the property is in is going to dictate what the rents are. Obviously, nicer neighborhoods draw a higher rent than neighborhoods that may be in a higher crime area, etc. Now, you can get an apartment, maybe a studio apartment that might be 450 square feet for about $700, but that doesn't help a family because you can't have more than 2 people in a bedroom. And the reason rents are so high is because there was such an influx of singles, a lot of professionals moving in. Also the fact that the younger generation, those people of childbearing years are waiting to have children, or they're not having children at all. So again, that's one reason why there are a lot more one bedrooms being built. Because the population has gone up, apartments have been built to accommodate those with a higher income. There isn't a lot of lower income housing available. However, that leads me into another topic. There was passed a law recently that said that you could tear down a single family home and build up to a triplex on that single family home lot. So that has changed the way some families feel about their neighborhoods. They don't necessarily want to have renters in what was a single family owner-occupied home. That has changed some people's viewpoint on different neighborhoods. Although we are way under the national average, and we are the 16th largest city in the country, average home buying in the 7-county metro area is about $379,000. So while that might not seem a lot, you can go to a lot of other places in this country and pay a lot less for housing. Our utilities keep going up. Of course, groceries everywhere are going up, but utilities run a little bit high as well. So one more reason why people are just leaving. cost of living. Our taxes here are quite high when you compare it to other states. We have from about a 5.85% income tax to about 9.8%. We have an average 7.5% sales tax on goods and services. Clothing, there is no sales tax on. Corporations are taxed at almost 10%. So there are a lot of costs involved in living here. Now, those taxes pay for a beautiful place to live, but not everybody wants to contribute to that. Another reason why people leave the Twin Cities is, of course, what everybody thinks of when they think of Minnesota is the weather. It's cold here. Minneapolis, St. Paul area is the coldest place in the country, including Anchorage, Alaska. However, we are the third coldest state in the country. So it gets cold here. If you don't like the cold, you don't want to move here. It's just bitterly cold here in the winter, or it can be. We had a very mild winter this past year, but that's not the norm. And the other thing is in the summer, there are heat extremes. So you have winter extremes, you have summer extremes where you might have tornadoes and hailstorms, winter blizzards, ice storms. All of those things contribute to reasons why people leave the state of Minnesota. I'm sticking around for a while.
You're staying here forever.
If you are thinking about making a move to the Twin Cities, please give us a call. We love helping people moving from out of state. Check the number below, shoot me a text, send me an email, or pick up the phone and give me a call. My team would love to help you. You know, right after the pandemic struck us in March of 2020, George Floyd was killed in May of 2020 by a police officer here in Minneapolis. That caused a lot of racial tension. That caused a lot of destruction. Between the mixture of people not working, because what ended up happening was people were given stipends for lack of work because restaurants closed down. A lot of jobs just stopped. What did that mean? There were a lot of people not working. A lot of people who had nothing better to do than go on crime sprees, because what happened was the crime rate went up in the Twin Cities all over the place. It was very destructive. There were a lot of protests. With the protests came more destruction. There were also some very peaceful protests. I'm not against protesting at all. What ended up happening was downtown Minneapolis became an area that people did not want to go down to, because you didn't know if you were going to get carjacked. You didn't know if you were going to get assaulted. So it happened. Now, the truth is, the crime has gone down in 2023. So that was really primarily in 2020 and 2021 and 2022 when the crime rates went up. People were stealing catalytic converters. They were carjacking homes. It did not matter if you were a man, a woman, it did not matter your age. And there were thugs just out there wreaking havoc, and people were scared. So they moved out of state. A lot of people with children moved out of state. People just didn't feel safe. And not to mention all of the racial tensions. You can still see areas of uptown and along Lake Street where buildings are boarded up. They're still boarded up, and it's 2024 now. And things have not gotten all the way back to normal here. So that is another reason why people have left the Twin Cities. Another reason why people move out of the Twin City is simply because they can't handle the traffic. You know, especially if you're coming from a rural area into the cities, it can be pretty bad. Whether you're talking about morning rush hour traffic, whether you're talking about afternoon rush hour traffic, or even sometimes on the weekends, it can be a bear just getting into downtown because they have different sports stadiums and different concert halls, all of the arts, etc. So getting into the city sometimes can really be a pain in the butt, and it's enough to make people leave the Twin Cities. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is politics. Now, the Democrats have a trifecta in the state of Minnesota. What is a trifecta? It's when the Democrats hold the majority in both the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the governorship. There's also a Democratic Secretary of State. There's also a Democratic Attorney General. So we have a triplex and a trifecta.
I see what you mean.
Now, not everybody is thrilled with that. During the pandemic, particularly, our governor shut down a lot of the state a lot of the time, and people were very unhappy with that. I know other states, people just left states that were having a lot of shutdowns, and Minnesota was one of them. So regardless of your political view, it's what happened. We do have a Democratic trifecta, and the policies that have been enacted are definitely a reason why some people are leaving the state. Even though this video was about the reasons that people are moving out of the Twin Cities, there are plenty of people moving into the Twin Cities as well. If there is anything that we can do to help you, if you are remotely even considering moving here, if you have any questions, we are more than happy to take your call. You can reach us via text, phone call, email, whatever works for you. We are here to help you and answer any questions you have. Hope to hear from you. Have a great day.